Diamonds built the modern luxury world. Now, some of the wealthiest collectors on Earth are quietly looking elsewhere. Not toward louder gemstones, toward rarer ones. Stones hidden inside private dealer networks. Locked away in vaults most buyers never enter. Traded through conversations that rarely become public. A glowing blue crystal from California. A gemstone once so rare experts thought it barely existed. A neon stone so visually unreal that photographs still fail to capture it properly. These are not mainstream status symbols. That is exactly why billionaire collectors want them. And the deeper this world becomes, the stranger the obsession starts to feel. Don't forget to press and hold that like button, leave a comment, and hit subscribe before we begin. Ranked 10th. SPHENE, the gemstone that quietly embarrasses diamonds. For decades, luxury markets trained collectors to believe that brilliance belonged to diamonds. Then, certain private buyers started noticing something strange. Under the right light, a lesser-known gemstone called SPHENE could explode with more fire, more color, and more visual intensity than stones selling for vastly higher prices. Tiny flashes of electric green, molten orange, gold, and spectral rainbow light seemed to burst from inside the crystal itself. In motion, the effect almost looked artificial, as if the gemstone had been digitally enhanced, but it was completely natural. That contradiction became part of the fascination, because in elite collecting circles, the most desirable discoveries are rarely the ones displayed in every luxury storefront. True high-end collectors often become obsessed with what the public ignores, and SPHENE sits directly inside that category. At first glance, the stone does not project traditional luxury status. It lacks the mainstream recognition of diamonds, sapphires, or emeralds. Many casual jewelry buyers have never even heard the name. But that obscurity is precisely what makes it increasingly attractive to certain billionaire collectors. Quiet wealth behaves differently from public wealth. The goal is no longer to own the most recognized object in the room. The goal is to own something unexpected, something that signals access to deeper knowledge. SPHENE delivers that feeling immediately. Gem dealers who specialize in collector-grade stones have privately noted growing interest in highly dispersive SPHENE specimens with exceptional clarity. Fine stones above a few carats are already difficult to source consistently, especially with strong fire and vivid color performance. And unlike mass-market gems, many of the best examples disappear quickly into private collections rather than public auctions. That creates a different kind of market pressure. Not hype, not trend chasing, scarcity driven by quiet acquisition. And visually, SPHENE creates another psychological effect wealthy collectors tend to love: unpredictability. The gemstone changes dramatically depending on movement, angle, and lighting. One second, it appears olive green. The next, it fractures into flashes of gold and rainbow fire that almost feel alive under museum lighting. It does not behave like a conventional luxury stone. It performs like a secret, which may explain why some collectors now see SPHENE as more than an overlooked gem. To the right buyer, it represents something far more valuable: discovery before the rest of the market catches up. And the next gemstone takes that feeling even further, because unlike SPHENE, its color looks so unreal that many people refuse to believe it formed naturally at all. Ranked 9th, GRANDIDIERITE, the gemstone that looks almost impossible. Some gemstones attract attention because they sparkle. GRANDIDIERITE creates a completely different reaction. The first encounter usually produces hesitation. Not admiration, not excitement. Hesitation. The color alone feels wrong in the most fascinating way imaginable. A shifting blend of tropical ocean blue, deep green, and muted teal that appears to change depending on depth, shadow, and angle. Under soft lighting, the stone can resemble sunlight passing through deep seawater moments before a storm, and that visual ambiguity has become part of its power. Unlike commercial gemstones engineered around brightness and perfection, GRANDIDIERITE feels mysterious before it feels luxurious. The stone carries an almost untouched quality, as though it belongs more to remote geological landscapes than polished jewelry boutiques. That distinction matters enormously in high-level collecting. Modern billionaire collectors increasingly gravitate toward gemstones that feel undiscovered rather than advertised. Recognition no longer guarantees desirability. In some elite circles, mass familiarity actually reduces it. GRANDIDIERITE thrives in that silence. Originally discovered in Madagascar, the gemstone remained largely invisible to mainstream luxury markets for decades, partly because transparent gem-quality material is exceptionally rare. Many specimens appear heavily included or opaque, making fine collector-grade stones extraordinarily difficult to source. Even experienced gem dealers can go years without encountering a truly exceptional example. That scarcity creates a very specific collector psychology, not urgency, validation. Owning GRANDIDIERITE signals access to networks and knowledge most buyers never reach. The stone does not communicate wealth loudly. It communicates precision, taste, patience, the kind of acquisition strategy associated more with private art collectors than traditional jewelry investors. And visually, GRANDIDIERITE behaves unlike almost anything beside it in a display case. Diamonds announce themselves immediately. Emeralds project historical prestige. Rubies radiate intensity. GRANDIDIERITE pulls the eye slowly. Collectors often describe staring at the stone longer than expected, trying to understand the shifting tones trapped beneath the surface. Certain specimens appear almost illuminated from within, while others darken into moody blue-green depths that feel cinematic rather than decorative. That subtle complexity is becoming increasingly important in luxury culture. Because among ultra-wealthy buyers, obvious luxury is beginning to lose emotional impact. Rare objects now compete through intrigue instead of visibility. The most desirable pieces are often the ones that demand explanation. GRANDIDIERITE does exactly that. It invites questions before admiration ever arrives. And in the private world of billionaire gemstone collecting, provoking curiosity can sometimes become more valuable than immediate recognition. But the next gemstone moves even deeper into hidden luxury territory, because unlike GRANDIDIERITE, this stone carries something elite American collectors quietly obsess over: geographic exclusivity that almost cannot be replicated anywhere else on Earth. Ranked 8th, BENITOITE, the rare American gemstone. Billionaires quietly notice. California built fortunes long before Silicon Valley ever existed. Gold, oil, land, power, and hidden deep within the same state lies a gemstone so rare that many luxury buyers spend their entire lives without ever seeing one in person. BENITOITE does not look like traditional old-world luxury. It carries none of the heavy historical identity attached to diamonds, rubies, or sapphires. That absence is part of what makes the stone increasingly attractive to a new generation of elite American collectors. Because modern billionaire psychology has changed. The wealthiest buyers are no longer searching for the most recognizable gemstone in the room. They are searching for objects that feel private, intelligent, and difficult to access. BENITOITE fits perfectly into that world. Its electric blue color already feels unusually sharp under normal light, cleaner and colder than many classic gemstones. But the real fascination begins when ultraviolet light touches the stone. Certain specimens suddenly ignite with an intense glowing fluorescence that feels almost unreal, like hidden energy trapped beneath the surface for decades waiting to emerge. The transformation is unforgettable. Not dramatic in the theatrical sense, more dangerous than that, because the gemstone creates the feeling that something secret has just revealed itself. Collectors remember that moment, and emotionally memorable objects dominate modern luxury culture far more effectively than traditional prestige alone. Benitoite also carries a form of rarity billionaire collectors find extremely difficult to ignore: geographic isolation. Fine material is tied overwhelmingly to one small region of California, creating a level of origin exclusivity few gemstones can realistically replicate. That limitation changes the emotional value completely. Owning benitoite begins feeling less like buying jewelry and more like acquiring a hidden fragment of American geological history, unavailable to the wider world. And supply remains brutally small. Collector-grade stones with strong color, clarity, and fluorescence appear in tiny numbers compared to mainstream luxury gems. Exceptional examples often move quietly through specialist dealers or disappear directly into private collections before broader markets ever become aware they were available. That invisible circulation creates powerful tension among sophisticated buyers, because scarcity becomes far more psychologically intense when the market itself feels hidden. No aggressive hype, no celebrity campaigns, no mass attention. Just informed collectors quietly competing for stones most people still do not recognize. And that lack of recognition may be benitoite's greatest strength. In elite collecting circles, obvious luxury is becoming predictable. But hidden luxury, luxury requiring knowledge, continues growing more emotionally valuable every year. Benitoite rewards exactly that kind of collector. The stone does not announce status loudly. It waits for the right person to notice it. And the next gemstone became famous for an even stranger reason, because experts spent years believing they were looking at something else entirely. Ranked 7th, TAAFFEITE, the gemstone. Experts didn't realize existed. Few luxury objects carry a more powerful story than something hidden in plain sight. Not hidden underground, not locked inside a private vault, hidden directly in front of experts who failed to recognize what they were seeing. That is exactly what makes TAAFFEITE so fascinating to elite gemstone collectors. For years, stones later identified as TAAFFEITE were mistaken for SPHENE. The resemblance was close enough that even trained professionals categorized them incorrectly. It was only after detailed gemological examination that the truth emerged. An entirely different gemstone species had been quietly circulating unnoticed. That revelation permanently changed the stone's identity. Because TAAFFEITE is no longer valued solely for rarity or appearance. It is valued for what it represents. The idea that true rarity can exist undetected inside established systems for decades. That concept deeply appeals to billionaire collectors. High-level collectors are rarely searching for objects everyone already understands. They are drawn toward discoveries that challenge perception itself. A gemstone ignored by the public is interesting. A gemstone overlooked by experts becomes something else entirely. It becomes intellectual luxury. Visually, TAAFFEITE does not scream for attention. The stone often appears delicate, subtle, almost restrained compared to louder commercial gems. Soft violet, mauve, lavender, and pale gray tones create a quieter form of beauty that feels increasingly aligned with modern private luxury aesthetics. Because wealthy collecting culture has shifted. Aggressive displays of wealth are losing influence among sophisticated buyers. Many elite collectors now prefer objects that reveal themselves slowly, pieces appreciated through knowledge rather than immediate spectacle. TAAFFEITE rewards exactly that kind of attention. Its scarcity adds another layer of intrigue. Fine gem-quality TAAFFEITE remains extraordinarily rare, with only limited sources producing materials suitable for serious collectors. Many specimens are small, difficult to cut, or lacking the visual clarity demanded by high-end acquisition standards. Exceptional stones become even harder to encounter in the open market, And unlike mainstream investment gems, TAAFFEITE often travels through highly specialized dealer networks instead of mass luxury channels. That changes the emotional experience of ownership. Collectors are not simply buying a gemstone. They are acquiring participation in a hidden story most people have never heard before. A story about oversight, misidentification, discovery. The psychological effect is powerful because ownership begins to feel less like consumption and more like access to secret knowledge. Under soft museum lighting, fine TAAFFEITE can appear almost understated at first glance. But that restraint becomes part of its elegance. The gemstone does not compete for attention. It waits for recognition, much like it did for decades before the gem world finally understood what it was looking at. And the next gemstone moves from quiet intellectual rarity into something far older and more emotionally charged. A stone connected to aristocracy, imperial prestige, and the kind of old-world luxury modern billionaires are increasingly trying to recreate. Ranked 6th, DEMANTOID GARNET, the green fire. Old money never abandoned. Inside certain European jewelry houses, there are gemstones that never truly disappeared. They simply stopped being discussed publicly. DEMANTOID garnet belongs to that category. Long before modern luxury culture became obsessed with oversized diamonds and celebrity branding, DEMANTOID had already earned admiration among aristocrats, imperial families, and elite collectors who valued refinement over visibility. Its rich green fire appeared in high society long before most modern investment gems entered mainstream awareness. And today, that old-world prestige is quietly returning. Unlike gemstones that rely purely on size or rarity, DEMANTOID carries emotional history. The stone feels connected to another era, one built around private estates, handwritten auction catalogs, candle-lit vault rooms, and generational collections passed through wealthy families over decades instead of social media trends. That atmosphere matters enormously to modern billionaire collectors, because luxury psychology is shifting again. For many ultra-wealthy buyers, the goal is no longer to own the loudest object. The real appeal now lies in acquiring pieces that feel culturally rooted, historically layered, and difficult for outsiders to fully understand. DEMANTOID creates exactly that sensation. Its appearance contributes heavily to the effect. Fine specimens display a vivid green brilliance unlike almost any other garnet, often producing flashes of light so intense that the stone seems internally electrified. Under warm lighting, the surface can erupt with golden and green fire that feels softer and more sophisticated than the aggressive sparkle associated with commercial diamonds. But among serious collectors, the real obsession often centers on something even stranger: tiny internal inclusions known as horsetail formations. In most gemstones, inclusions reduce value. In DEMANTOID, certain needle-like internal patterns can actually increase desirability because they help confirm natural Russian origin. Collectors sometimes study these delicate structures almost like fingerprints hidden inside the stone. That subtle detail perfectly reflects how elite collecting works. The value is not always visible immediately. Sometimes prestige exists in the details only insiders recognize. And the finest DEMANTOID specimens have become increasingly difficult to secure. Historic Russian material remains especially coveted, while top-quality stones with strong color, brilliance, and desirable inclusions rarely circulate openly for long. Many move quietly through specialized dealers and private collectors before broader markets ever notice them. That limited visibility adds to the gemstone's mystique. DEMANTOID does not feel trendy, it feels inherited. Like the kind of gemstone discovered inside an old velvet jewelry box hidden in a European estate, no public auction catalog ever photographed properly. That emotional texture is becoming incredibly valuable in modern luxury culture, especially among buyers exhausted by mass-produced status symbols. Because some collectors are no longer chasing attention. They are chasing permanence. And the next gemstone pushes that pursuit into something far more extreme. A stone so difficult to obtain that even experienced collectors can spend years searching without ever finding a truly exceptional example. Ranked 5th, JEREMEJEVITE, the gemstone. Some billionaires never stop searching for. Most luxury purchases end the moment the object is acquired. JEREMEJEVITE works differently. For certain collectors, the pursuit itself becomes the addiction. The gemstone spent decades existing almost like a rumor inside elite gem circles. Not fake, not mythical, just painfully difficult to encounter at a level serious collectors considered worthy of ownership. Many buyers saw photographs. Some heard dealers mention exceptional stones privately. Very few actually held top-grade specimens in person. That distance changed everything. Because desire intensifies differently when access remains uncertain. JEREMEJEVITE never flooded luxury markets. It never became socially fashionable. It never developed the commercial familiarity surrounding diamonds, sapphires, or emeralds. Instead, the gemstone stayed hidden inside specialist networks where rarity carried more emotional power than recognition ever could. And sophisticated collectors became fascinated by that invisibility. Visually, JEREMEJEVITE feels almost cold in its perfection. Fine specimens often display pale blue, icy aqua, or crystal-clear tones with a sharp transparency that appears unnaturally clean under focused lighting. The gemstone does not explode with color or dramatic fire. It creates tension through restraint. That restraint becomes hypnotic over time, especially to billionaire collectors exhausted by obvious luxury. At extreme wealth levels, attention loses value quickly. Loud acquisitions become repetitive, but objects requiring patience, access, and emotional discipline begin carrying far greater psychological weight. JEREMEJEVITE rewards exactly those qualities, and finding exceptional material remains brutally difficult. Many stones entering the market are too included, too small, or too visually soft to interest elite buyers. Collector-grade specimens with strong clarity, elegant cutting, and the precise balance of tone and transparency serious collectors want appear in microscopic numbers. When one surfaces, conversations start quietly. Private calls, discreet negotiations, invisible competition, not public bidding wars, something more controlled, because high-level collectors rarely chase gemstones impulsively. They pursue them like missing pieces of highly curated personal archives. The acquisition becomes emotional long before ownership ever happens. JEREMEJEVITE creates that emotional escalation naturally. The gemstone also benefits from something increasingly rare in luxury culture: isolation from mainstream attention, no influencer saturation, no aggressive branding, no overexposure. The stone still feels protected from public consumption, almost untouched by commercial prestige systems. That protected status matters enormously. Because once luxury becomes too visible, sophisticated collectors often lose interest. JEREMEJEVITE still feels hidden, and under gallery lighting, fine specimens can appear almost frozen in time, silent, precise, nearly unreal in their clarity. The gemstone does not dominate the room aggressively. It pulls collectors closer instead. That subtle magnetism becomes difficult to forget. Eventually, ownership stops symbolizing wealth entirely. It starts symbolizing access to a level of rarity most people never realize exists. And the next gemstone pushed that idea so far that experts once believed only a handful of specimens existed anywhere on Earth. Ranked 4th, PAINITE, the gemstone that became a legend through Disappearance. PAINITE did not become famous by being seen. It became famous by being missing. For decades, the gemstone occupied a strange place in the gem world, real enough to be studied, rare enough to feel almost fictional. Dealers spoke about it carefully. Mineral collectors searched for it obsessively. Many experts knew the name long before they ever saw a serious specimen in person. That kind of absence creates power, not market power at first. Myth power. Painite became desirable before most buyers even understood what it looked like. Its reputation was built through scarcity so extreme that the stone started feeling less like jewelry and more like proof that nature can create something almost impossible to repeat. That is exactly why elite collectors pay attention. At the billionaire level, beauty is everywhere. Expensive objects are everywhere, but objects with true mythology are rare. Painite carries that mythology naturally. It does not need celebrity endorsement, luxury branding, or public recognition. Its value comes from a much colder source, near impossible access. Visually, painite has a dense, ancient presence. Its deep reddish-brown body can flash with copper, ember orange, dark crimson, and burnt amber under focused light. It does not sparkle like a commercial showpiece. It glows like something pulled from deep geological time. That visual seriousness gives the stone emotional weight. Painite feels older than luxury, and that matters to collectors who have grown tired of polished, predictable prestige. The finest pieces do not feel designed for attention. They feel discovered, documented, and guarded. Even after more painite material was found, exceptional collector-grade specimens remained extremely limited. Stones with strong clarity, desirable size, and meaningful visual depth still occupy a tiny corner of the market. The best examples rarely stay visible for long. They vanish into specialist collections, into locked archives, into private hands that do not need public applause. That disappearance keeps the legend alive, because painite's power is not just rarity. It is the feeling that the opportunity may already be gone before the wider world even notices it existed. To sophisticated collectors, that is not just a gemstone. It is a trophy from the edge of possibility. A mineral once so scarce it became a story before it became an acquisition. And after painite, the list moves into an even quieter level of luxury, where the rarest stones may never appear in public at all. Ranked third, MUSGRAVITE, the gemstone that barely enters public markets. Certain gemstones become valuable because the world talks about them. MUSGRAVITE became valuable because almost nobody does. No major advertising campaigns, no celebrity obsession, no luxury storefront displays, just silence. And in elite collecting culture, silence can become incredibly expensive. MUSGRAVITE exists inside a level of rarity that changes how acquisition works entirely. Once gemstones become scarce enough, they stop moving through traditional public channels. Auctions become less relevant. Visibility decreases. Information fragments into private dealer conversations, invitation-only networks, and transactions that rarely leave public records behind. That is where MUSGRAVITE operates. Many wealthy collectors will never even see one in person, not because they cannot afford it, because access itself becomes restricted. The gemstone was first identified in remote geological regions with only tiny quantities of gem-quality material ever entering circulation. Even today, exceptional specimens remain astonishingly limited. Fine stones with strong clarity, desirable color, and collector-level cutting can disappear into private hands almost immediately after surfacing. And that disappearance creates psychological pressure money alone cannot solve. Because billionaire collectors are often not chasing objects anymore. They are chasing opportunities, the opportunity to acquire something before it vanishes from visibility completely. MUSGRAVITE feeds that instinct perfectly. Its appearance feels unusually controlled compared to louder luxury stones. Soft gray-violet tones, muted green flashes, smoky lavender undertones. Nothing about the gemstone screams for public attention. The beauty reveals itself gradually, almost cautiously, under changing light. That restraint has become deeply attractive to sophisticated collectors, exhausted by obvious status symbols. Modern luxury psychology is shifting toward private recognition. The most powerful acquisitions are increasingly the ones understood only by a microscopic circle of insiders. Musgravite fits naturally into that world because it never needed mainstream validation to build prestige. The gemstone already lives above public awareness, and the acquisition environment surrounding it feels more like high-level art dealing than jewelry retail. Conversations happen quietly. Access depends on relationships. Certain stones move directly between collectors without ever appearing publicly for sale. That atmosphere changes the emotional weight of ownership. Musgravite does not feel purchased. It feels obtained. Like entry into a hidden layer of the luxury market operating parallel to the visible world most buyers still focus on, which may explain why so many extraordinary specimens disappear almost instantly once serious collectors learn they exist. Because at a certain level of wealth, the ultimate flex is no longer owning what everyone desires. It is owning what almost nobody even knows to search for. And the next gemstone takes that philosophy to an even more psychologically powerful extreme, because its greatest luxury comes from being nearly invisible to ordinary recognition itself. Ranked second, red beryl, the gemstone. Real wealth doesn't need to explain. Recognition used to define luxury, the rarest watch, the largest diamond, the brand everyone immediately noticed. But at extreme levels of wealth, something changes. Visibility starts losing value. That shift explains the growing fascination surrounding red beryl. At first glance, the gemstone almost feels unfamiliar. The color carries a deep crimson intensity, somewhere between ruby, ember, and dark desert mineral tones. Under focused light, certain stones appear as though heat is trapped beneath the surface itself. Not flashy, not overly polished, just concentrated and dangerously rare. And rarity defines everything about red beryl. Fine specimens are so limited that comparisons to diamonds become almost meaningless. In certain qualities, red beryl exists at a level of scarcity many mainstream luxury buyers struggle to fully comprehend. Exceptional stones over even a few carats are extraordinarily uncommon, with much of the world's supply tied to isolated deposits in the American Southwest. That geographic limitation creates powerful psychological value. Because billionaire collectors increasingly chase objects connected to places that cannot easily be replicated, scaled, or industrialized, red beryl feels inseparable from harsh desert geology, remote terrain, and conditions too specific for mass luxury production. The gemstone resists commercialization, and sophisticated collectors love assets that resist mass visibility. Unlike diamonds or rubies, red beryl rarely generates instant recognition outside specialist circles. Most people would never identify it correctly in a private viewing room. Ironically, that lack of recognition has become one of the stone's greatest strengths among elite buyers. Because modern, quiet wealth operates differently, the goal is no longer public admiration. The goal is selective understanding. Owning something extraordinary without needing validation from the room creates a much deeper form of status. Red beryl communicates that idea almost perfectly. The gemstone feels personal, controlled, nearly hidden from mainstream luxury culture entirely, and its scarcity continues tightening. Collector-grade material with strong saturation, clarity, and cutting quality appears only in microscopic quantities compared to commercial gemstones dominating global jewelry markets. Many serious specimens disappear directly into long-term collections where they may remain unseen for decades. That creates a strange emotional effect around the stone. The market feels less alive than preserved, as though each exceptional red beryl, quietly removed from circulation, makes the next acquisition significantly more difficult, which is exactly the kind of pressure sophisticated collectors monitor closely. Not hype cycles, not trends, disappearance. And visually, red beryl carries something increasingly rare in modern luxury itself: restraint. The stone does not beg for attention. It holds intensity beneath the surface and waits for the right observer to notice it. That subtle power may be why certain billionaire collectors now consider red beryl one of the purest symbols of private luxury remaining in the gemstone world. But the final gemstone moves beyond rarity entirely, because collectors do not merely acquire it, they become obsessed with it. In first place, PARAIBA tourmaline, the gemstone billionaires become obsessed with. The first time most collectors see a true PARAIBA tourmaline, the reaction is usually silence. Not because the gemstone is subtle, because the brain struggles to process the color correctly. Electric blue, neon turquoise, almost glowing from inside the crystal itself. Under certain lighting, PARAIBA does not even appear natural. The stone looks closer to liquid light than mineral formation, as if someone trapped tropical ocean water, lightning, and neon fire inside a single surface. Photographs rarely capture it properly. That failure has become part of the obsession. Collectors describe seeing PARAIBA in person as completely different from viewing it online, in books, or through auction catalogs. The gemstone creates an intensity cameras flatten immediately. Even high-end imaging struggles to reproduce the strange internal glow that made PARAIBA famous among elite buyers almost overnight. And once wealthy collectors encounter exceptional specimens in person, many never forget them. That psychological imprint is incredibly powerful because billionaire collectors eventually stop searching for ordinary beauty. They search for emotional reactions strong enough to cut through familiarity itself. After decades surrounded by rare watches, museum art, vintage cars, and investment gemstones, very few objects still feel shocking. PARAIBA still does. The finest stones appear almost radioactive under focused light. Vivid blue-green energy seems to float beneath the surface instead of reflecting off it. Some collectors privately compare the experience to seeing a gemstone from another planet, something Earth should not have produced naturally. That sense of impossibility drives demand relentlessly, and true high-level PARAIBA material remains extraordinarily scarce. The original Brazilian discoveries produced stones with a color saturation the market had never seen before. Over time, supply tightened dramatically, while collector fascination only intensified. Exceptional untreated specimens with strong neon color, clarity, and desirable size now occupy an elite tier few gemstones ever reach. But rarity alone does not explain PARAIBA's hold over billionaire collectors. The real power is emotional. Most gemstones eventually become familiar after repeated exposure. PARAIBA resists that process. The color continues pulling attention every time the stone enters light. Owners often find themselves staring at it repeatedly, almost involuntarily, waiting for the glow to intensify again from another angle. That reaction borders on addiction. And in modern luxury culture, emotional addiction may be the rarest asset category left, because true billionaire collecting is no longer about impressing other people. It is about finding objects capable of still creating wonder after everything else has stopped doing it. PARAIBA tourmaline still does, which may explain why the world's finest specimens are quietly disappearing into private collections faster than most people even realize they exist. The luxury world is changing, not loudly, quietly. Some of the rarest gemstones on Earth are no longer moving through traditional jewelry culture at all. They are slipping into private collections, hidden dealer networks, and vaults most buyers will never enter. And that may be the most important shift of all. Because billionaire collectors are no longer chasing recognition the way previous generations did. The obsession now centers around something far more difficult to obtain. Rarity almost nobody else understands. A gemstone the public cannot identify. A color cameras fail to reproduce. A stone so scarce it disappears before the market notices it exists. That is where modern elite collecting is heading. not toward louder luxury, toward hidden possession. And somewhere tonight, another extraordinary gemstone is probably changing hands in complete silence, while the rest of the world still searches for diamonds.